Now, as I stated earlier, initially the movement of the rudder moon life star did not need to be so precise, and since we did not acknowledge any life forms on said body of mass, it didn't matter how much we upset the status quo to make the movements we needed to make. But as time progressed and we started to seed said body of mass in the galaxy sky, we would bring those movements down and try to harness a more, concise, select, precise movement. However, sometimes this would still create such cataclysmic events that would wipe out entire species. And this is pretty much what happens with that final rudder movement adjustment. Make no mistake, these things happen pretty much every 26,000 years, give or take. It all depends on the mathematics of your given planet, based on the size of your planet and the size of your moon. As I said, we sent off various sizes of life stars to seed the galaxy with mankind, knowing full well that we would need to capture masses of bodies of different sizes that we may or may not know were out there. So we gamed the system a little bit, so not everyone has the same math. However, the principles and the consciousness behind all of it is the same, if that makes sense. So that being said, we are all here now in this shared home we all call Earth. Now, up and until the last great flood, worldwide global flood, all knowledge and all transcendence was shared worldwide. This is why all those ancient cultures and all these things are reoccurring across the entire planet. After the flood dissipated, and even in some places the moon had to repopulate from scratch. Thank God we saved our DNA there. Again, this is a living thing in real time. It's not history, it's not future, it's now. We were able to repopulate certain places, others did survive, and Earth was able to continue, but we had no memory prior to the last flood. Therefore, ergo, no one knew where the pyramids came from. No one knew where certain things came from. No one knew how certain things worked. As a species with amnesia, we had to figure stuff out all over again. And this creation of imagination of the different cultures across the entire planet created so much diversity in belief systems, while yet at the same time holding on to the same belief system overall. And that's the beauty of what God truly is. That no matter where you go in time, and no matter what culture you study, the basic true beliefs are always inherently the same. What a testament. So after this last great flood, Earth global devastation flood, where civilization began to reemerge, this is when we get the stories of what you're familiar with, the cultures that you're familiar with, the things that they could ground in absolute or create enough of a story behind it that people would believe it. And a lot of things that they could not explain correctly became myth or fantasy. Evil became pervasive and began to take over. Lost souls searching for answers began turning to anyone that had any claim to any validation, whether it was true or not. And this is where we get all of the ancestry and the mythologies and these other things, some based on reality, some not. Some are stories that started as truth but became huge fish stories, where it's so exaggerated and turned into allegory, but yet there's still people that want to take it verbatim. So again, I'm here to bridge those gaps and show what science really is for the creation of our humanity and our spirit and all of mankind, while still showing that at the heart of it, at the soul of it, it is still God and nature that is what creates it all. And that is the us, inside of the us, through the us, for the us, by the us, whether it is in our future history or our future past. All of it is us. And that guidance and persistence never ends. And it manifests itself as consciousness. It manifests itself in other ways. And we become who we were always meant to be. Which is why I have to tell my story the only way I know how to tell it. So after the last great flood, when the evil became pervasive, governments started coming out. Rulers, kings, queens, emperors, I mean, you name it. It was all about how to control the people. And that could be a good or a bad thing, as in sometimes people just need the correct guidance to do the right thing, to show the right morality. And overall, I think that's what most religions try to do. But somewhere along the way, those that want to bastardize or corrupt the religions, the true beliefs, the true systems, no matter which main religion you adhere to, you all know the names of them. There's always good behind the intent, and then you can always find the bad passages. But as a whole of humanity, society, and mankind, we always know what's best to adhere to. We always know what is the right thing to do. And that is why these systems persist over millennia and all time. That's why they're debated about going all the way back through history, and why they will always be debated going into the future. And my apologies in anticipation of this new record now going into those debates and creating conflict that may come with it, because that's not the intent. But whenever you have free will of the people to interpret how they want to interpret and what they want to interpret, we have to expect outcomes that we did not perceive. And this is why we seeded the galaxy, in case we just blow ourselves up one day. Like, imagine that. Imagine that mankind or our planet was not wiped out by an asteroid, was not wiped out by the cataclysmic great flood because the moon had to self-correct. What if we just destroyed our own planet because of our own self-greed, our own self-adulation, our own self-egoism, our own self-narcissism? This is a bigger fear for me than ever being colliding with an asteroid or the next great flood. We as a people need to always have the correct beliefs and shared beliefs, no matter what your origins of your beliefs. In other words, we all want the same outcome. We all want peace. We all want tranquility. We all want the earth to thrive, and we all want our family to thrive, and we all want good food and good things and happiness towards all. That's a shared concept we can all work towards, no matter what our historical backgrounds are and ancient beliefs come from. At the end of the day, when taught correctly and shown correctly, people will begin to understand that all of those ancient beliefs are actually the same beliefs. Therefore, we need to all come back together as one, the way we used to be. I cannot begin to tell you how dismayed I am at seeing all the corruption and lies of history that's being retold, whether it be in the biblical format, theological, governmental, historical, it's just ridiculous. And I see these other countries across the globe, I see the United States, all of them, and I just see the peoples within, and all of these lost souls being taken down the wrong road of despair and dismay by telling them such lies. And then it dawned on me, the people telling the lies think it's truth. In their world, they think they're educating and taking people down the right path, when in reality they're perpetrating a lie, an evil, something that we don't need anymore as a species. It's time to change our viewpoint and self-realization of who and what we really are and where we really come from, if we're going to succeed as a true unified source of what we truly are. This division among us needs to stop. The biggest fallacy pushed among mankind that I see in this natural incarnate new form that I have is the race wars, when mankind is only one race. The human race. This division is unreal. It's just not natural. And it tells me there's a real evil, a real purpose of evil that's trying to divide us, that's trying to separate us as people. And we need to harness that negative energy and bottle it back into a place that maybe evil can be used for good, whether to power something that can be used from it, or heat up something that can be used from it, while the rest of us sitting around with good intent, good thoughts can really excel mankind to where we need to take it with the unification of what we really are. Because all evil wants to do is divide us. And that's how all you have to do is to analyze every situation. Is it trying to make you hate something, or is it trying to unify you to something? It's that easy. If you come across anything in your world and it's trying to teach you hate, then that's evil. Because if you're trying to hate on something, there's only one us. There's only one God. There's only one conscious, eternal thought. And so it's teaching you to hate yourself. If you think you're always, upset and not understanding what's going on, and the world is confusing and all of these things, and you get hypertension and you're on all these meds, well, maybe that's why. Because you're being taught to hate things, but in reality, you're being taught to hate yourself. And therefore, you're never truly happy, even though you might have the latest and greatest and the most expensive of everything, the biggest house on the block. It's still not satisfying your soul. And without truly knowing where and from whence we come, and the true origins of whatever culture you may think you are from, even though it's all the same, all one, all from the singularity, right? We will always be a species with amnesia. So here I am again to bridge that gap. Now, among the false history that's been taught as doctrine, mostly because they just don't know, other they do, and they just fabricate it, and other is true, the reality is also that the Old and New Testament and the Torah and the Quran all hold valuable allegories, stories, and truths that also need to still be looked into. The Dead Sea Scrolls and any other, theological writings that may be out there, whether it be Zoroastrian, Norse, Egyptian, Mithras. It doesn't really matter, because they all at the heart have the same foundation. But for Christian purposes specifically, my namesake, it became the Old Testament and the New Testament, also preceding that to a certain extent the Torah, which is the Jewish Bible. And All of these things are just so important because they do tell a lot about your particular planet's history post-flood. And that is important because not all planets that were seeded, as we keep saying, are the same. And therefore, just like everyone has free will, every planet has its own destiny. And these allegories and stories sanctioned by the governments over time and handed out, transcended over the ages, will tell those stories better than I can hear throughout the whole thing. My importance here is to, like I keep saying, just bridge the gaps that these other books do not have. So that is why I'm saying these other books are of the utmost importance when it comes to learning about these things. But remember that our original intent was for the Gnostic ways to prevail, and it wasn't for your true knowledge to go through a book. The book is a guide and a help towards that Gnosticism, if that makes sense to you. And through that, you may have your transcendence to the divine.